Have you ever stopped to think about how your body actually builds itself? We're about to take a tour of the microscopic assembly line running inside every single one of your cells. We're talking about the factory floor, the endoplasmic reticulum, and its incredible shipping department, the Golgi apparatus. So I want you to picture each one of your cells as a tiny, high-tech factory, just like this one. It's this bustling, complex city where all these specialized departments are working together in perfect harmony. And today, we're focusing on its most critical piece of infrastructure, the main production and shipping highway.
And that highway has a name. It's called the endomembrane system. You can think of it as the core manufacturing and logistics network of our entire cellular factory. It's in charge of creating and shipping all the essential molecules that, keep you alive.
What's so cool is how all these different parts work together as a team. You've got your key players, like the endoplasmic reticulum. That's our factory floor. Then there's the Golgi complex, which handles all the packaging. And finally, you have the lysosomes and vacuoles, which are kind of like the cleanup and storage crews. They all link up to form this seamless, incredibly efficient production line.
Okay, so let's get right to it. We're heading straight to where all the action begins, the factory floor itself, the endoplasmic reticulum.
The ER is this huge, sprawling network of tiny, interconnected tubes. Seriously, picture a massive system of tunnels that winds through the whole cell. This setup actually divides the cell's interior into two separate zones, the space inside the tunnels and then everything else on the main factory floor, the cytoplasm. And that separation is absolutely essential for keeping all its different jobs organized.
And this network isn't just some random maze either. It's actually built from three very specific parts. You've got these flat, sort of pancake-like sacs called cisternae, then you have these branching, pipe-like things called tubules, and finally, these little bubble-like vesicles that act like tiny transport pods. Now, the two main structures here, the cisternae and the tubules, have some really important differences. Cisternae are these flat sacs, and they're studded with all this protein-making machinery called ribosomes, which gives them a rough look. The tubules, on the other hand, are these smooth, branched pipes that don't have any ribosomes at all. And that one single difference, whether or not ribosomes are there, completely changes what they do in the factory. So just how big is this network? Well, get this. The ER membrane makes up more than half of all the membranes in a typical cell. I mean, can you imagine if over half of a city's entire area was just roads and highways? That's how completely dominant this structure is. It is, by far, the cell's single biggest piece of infrastructure. But here's the thing. That huge network isn't just one big general-purpose department. Nope. It's actually split into two highly specialized divisions, each with a totally different job to do. We're talking about the rough ER and the smooth ER. And you can see the difference so clearly here. The rough ER gets its name from all those little dots you see covering its surface. Those are the ribosomes, the protein factories. Then, right next to it, you can see the smooth ER, which, well, it's exactly what it sounds like. A network of smooth tubes, no ribosomes in sight.
And their jobs are as different as they look. The rough ER is basically the protein assembly line, building all the products that are meant to be shipped out of the cell. The smooth ER, though, that's more like the chemical plant. It's busy synthesizing essential lipids, things like fats and steroids, and in some cells, it even runs the detoxification center.
It really all boils down to supply and demand. As one study puts it, the rough ER is most common in cells that are super busy with protein synthesis and secretion. In other words, the more proteins a cell has to make and ship out, the bigger and more complex its rough ER is going to be. Makes sense, right?
Okay, so the rough ER is cracking out all these proteins. But now what? How do they actually get where they need to go? How does our factory package everything up and ship its products? Well, that's where our next stop comes in, the Golgi, which is basically the cell's post office.
But let's take a quick step back in time, to 1898. There's an Italian scientist, Camillo Golgi, peering through his microscope, and he spots something nobody had ever seen before. These densely stained reticular structures hanging out near the cell's nucleus. He had just discovered the cell's post office, and so, of course, it was named the Golgi apparatus in his honor.
Now, the Golgi's structure is the secret to its function. It's made of a stack of these flattened, membrane-bound sacs called cisternae. They honestly look a lot like a pile of pancakes. This stack design isn't just for show. It creates a multi-stage processing line, where products get modified step by step as they move through each layer.
And this stack has a very clear direction. It has two totally distinct faces. There's a receiving dock, which is called the sys face, and then there's a shipping dock, the trans face. All the materials come in one side, get processed as they move through the stack, and then get shipped out from the other side. So organized.
So let's follow a product through this whole line. First, a protein gets built on the rough ER's factory floor. Then it gets loaded up into a little transport bubble, a vesicle, that breaks off and travels over to the Golgi. This vesicle docks at the sys face, drops off its cargo for some final tweaks and packaging before it gets shipped out from the trans face to wherever it needs to go. It's a perfect end-to-end logistics chain.
All right, so we've seen the individual parts of the machine. Now let's zoom out and take a look at the big picture, how this entire system works in action and why it's so incredibly important for us.
So why does all of this matter? Well, because the cell's internal layout is perfectly customized for its specific job. Your pancreas cells, they are absolutely packed with rough ER so they can pump out massive amounts of digestive enzymes. Your liver cells are full of smooth ER to detoxify your blood. And your muscle cells have this special type of smooth ER that controls the flow of calcium, which is literally what makes your muscles contract. Form follows function perfectly.
And that brings us to one final thought. We've just toured this amazingly precise cellular factory, with its assembly lines and its shipping department running like clockwork. But what happens if that shipping department makes a mistake? What are the consequences if one critical protein gets sent to the wrong address? The answer to that question is tied to a whole range of diseases, and it just goes to show how unbelievably critical this tiny cellular machine truly is.